Hello peeps, so welcome along to part 4 of my little mini masters build, the 5TB. This video is going to be PlayStation 2 and I'm going to show you how to go about configuring it. I'm going to take a look at a few different settings to show you some different graphics options, some different with anti-aliasing on. We'll see if we run into any issues with this different settings and also solve a couple of little problems that I find along the way. Again, if you're new to this channel, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe. Obviously that's if you enjoy the video. Or also, if you take anything from this video whatsoever, a quick thumbs up wouldn't go amiss. I'd really appreciate it. We're close to reaching 1,000 subscribers. I'm on like 650, that sort of mark. So that being said, I'd like to thank all my subscribers, new and old, and maybe future. So again, the test system I'm using here is a Dell Optiplex 3040. It's an i5 6500 3.2 GHz processor. It's got 8 GB RAM and we're using the Nvidia T400 graphics card. Now basically, if you're after a little graphics card, these are really good little graphics card for emulation. If you can get them for around about £100, I'd really recommend them for an emulation machine or an arcade cabinet or anything. They're also low profile, they don't need any extra power, so they're ideal for these little small form factor computers. They're perfect. Also, again, if anyone needs any information or any help and you want to send me an email, you can do that. I'll put it on screen now. It's ricksromsuk@gmail.com. Or you can have a look at my website, look at a few bits and bobs. You can contact me through there as well. That's www.ricksromsuk.com. So this video might be a bit long-winded for some people, might be a bit boring in places, but I'm basically trying to help everybody. You know, some people out there don't know how to go about changing certain resolutions and stuff like that, so it's got to be for everybody. There might be some tips and tricks in here for people who've been using it that I run into some issues where I find the solution for. It might be an issue that you ran into, so it might solve it. So hopefully there's a bit of something for everybody in here. Well, let's crack on. Firstly, we're going to have a look where the game's kept. Go into your Retrobat folder, down to ROMs, scroll all the way down, find your PS2 folder, and as you can see, all my file types are the CHD file type. The PlayStation 2 emulator can run multiple files, but I prefer the CHD files personally. Then you've got your images and videos, obviously, in these folders. That's where all your artwork's kept for all the different games. If you download any games, if there's box art missing, you can stick them in here and select them yourself. So if you press the back button, go down to Advanced System Options. As you can see in the emulator section here, we've got the SSE4 PSX2, which is the one we're going to be using, the AVX2 and the 16, which are the older ones, but I use the SSE4 one. Shader set, I don't bother messing about with them. It's up to you, personal preference, scan lines and stuff like that. It's basically just, I don't like them myself. Decorations, again, this is where if you want borders on your game, if you're going to play in the 4x4 resolution, the default unglazed is always the standard console one, so in this case the PlayStation 2. We're going to be going at 16:9, and then later on I'm going to show you where to find the widescreen hacks. I'll put vertical sync on auto, and then later on in the video I'll show you where you're getting a bit of screen tear and I'll change it. So as you can see, God of War 2 is running totally fine at the native resolution, which is one of the most demanding games. So we're going to flick it up to 720p. Again, running absolutely fine on the Direct 3D 12 core, which is the best one. So we'll try it at 1920 by 1080, which is 3 times resolution. Again, looking totally fine, running full speed. So we'll flick it up again. We'll try the 1440p, which is 4 times resolution. So obviously pushing it a little bit too far there. So we'll knock it back down to 1920 by 1080. And that's where we'll start. We'll go into the next system with that. Yeah, Gran Turismo 4 running full speed, 1920 by 1080. It is looking a little bit stretched, but we'll try it at 1440p. (1440p), still running full speed. So we'll try it at 5 times resolution. So as you can see there, we're getting slowed down. So we know that 1440p is sort of the maximum setting that we can go to on this. So I'll drop it back down to that. Again, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas running totally fine. So we'll knock it up another little scale on his resolution. We'll put it onto 1440p 4 times. Now, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a fair bit of screen tearing on this game. So we'll go in, we'll put the vertical sync on, and that totally removes all the screen tearing. Some of the emulators, the vertical sync doesn't work on it.
And a player in this city don't call me up. Why did I pick this from?
So we'll knock it up to 5 times resolution.
Ain't nothing dope about the Grove, man.
You know you fucking went.
Shut your mouth in there, hole. Don't touch me.
That ain't shit to me.
Again, running full speed at 5 times resolution. Try it at 4K.
Grove Street. Home. At least it was before I fucked everything up.
So we got quite a bit of slowdown there as we pulled into Grove Street. I'd set this one at 1440p to be honest. So now we'll have a look at the other settings. We'll try and mess about with a few, see what sort of results we get. We'll turn on anti-aliasing. We'll also turn on bilinear filtering. Also on the texture filtering, we'll go to bilinear PS2, which causes an issue later on a certain game, which I'll show you. Now notice changing all these settings, if you look at the vest of the character, you'll see a lot of graining on it, which wasn't there before. Certain stuff looks sharper, but then there's certain stuff that it spoils.
Grove Street, home. At least it was before I fucked everything up.
So this setting here, the manual render fixes. If you put it on, if you can see the red blurring on the screen, that's what causes that. It took me ages to work out what I'd clicked on to actually put that on, but that is the setting that basically adds the blurring. So back in and turn it off. So these are basically the final settings that I'm going to be using until later on the video. And I'm going to do a little side-by-side comparison, which you should be able to pick up. The graining on the t-shirt that I spoke about. Like I say, for all this setting up and all this messing about, it doesn't make a massive difference. Yeah, you can see it on certain games, but you're already upscaled to 1920 or 4K in certain times. I don't believe you need it any better than that, to be fair.
¡Güey, idiota!
Causing a bit of carnage on this Superbike 07 Antipre. It's the best way to see whether your system is going to slow down. The more bikes on the screen, the more demanding on the computer. And again, it was flying on 1440p. So we'll just try it straight up at 4K. So Need for Speed Underground looked a little bit twitchy and a little bit slow, but it's obviously down to it being a 30 frames per second game. Also, you notice on this, as with Gran Turismo mainly, that the cars look really stretched. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into the aspect ratio and knock it down to 4:3. As you can see, the cars look a lot better. They're not as stretched. It looks a lot more like you remember it. So you can't put the widescreen axe on, so you have to come out and go into the Retrobat section, come down to the PSX2 emulator, the SSE4 version. And while we're in here, we're going to quickly update it. So help, check for updates. Just going to find an update here. Download and install this update. You don't have to do this. And then we're going to go into the system settings, down to the hotkeys, and I'll quickly show you here. This is for your save state. Basically, you can change anything here, but your save state's obviously the main ones. Function 1's to save the save state, function 2 select a different one, and function 3 to load. Also, while you're in here, you can come into your controller. If there's any certain buttons that you don't like how they're configured, you can change them. So again, we'll go up to system settings, emulation, graphics, and as you can see here, we can enable the widescreen patches, which you can't do from the advanced system settings. Also, you can do this individually on the games. If you right click, you can change the settings individually on each game. So we'll go back in now, look at Need for Speed. Now, as I'm coming in to load the save game, if you update PSX2, your old save games won't work. It's not always, but it's something to take in mind. Your save game might not necessarily work once you've updated it. But as you can see, with the widescreen patch enabled, it looks so much better. The cars don't look stretched. So on to Shadow of the Colossus. We're dropping some frames here on the 1440p setting. But another thing with this game is 18-year-old and it looks so good. It was way ahead of its time, this game was. We'll drop it down to 1080p and we'll be running full speed and still looking really good.
Fight! listening to EA Radio Big. Okay, Fisher
Future Spooner and Junkie XL. Perfect combo to ride to. Enjoy.
Hey, Elise! Take off your board and run.
Hostile to the northwest. Take cover in that crater.
And they're off. The cars are streaming past the starting line. Three laps to go. What's up with him?
Press and hold the R1 button to crouch. Press X while crouching to do a...
So now, when testing Pro Evolution Soccer 2013, I scored an absolute worldie from the kickoff.
So we're off then. Gerrard. Welbeck. And it's taken with some style. And that was quick. It is the perfect start. Straight off the left upright and into the goal. The keeper had absolutely no chance. Just listen to the fans. They've done a fine job making that extra man.
Lock onto enemies to make your shots more accurate. Change lock target with lock change.
Now, I wanted to show God of War 2 with the final settings and the widescreen axe enabled. But when I went to start it, I got a weird ghosting, which I had before, and basically had to go into the emulator to sort it out. And this is a setting here. Go down to visual rendering. If this was on the nearest setting, which I was running on at the time, it causes the shadowing, like so. So we'll come straight back out, go back to advanced game options, go down to the visual rendering, texture filtering, change that to bilinear PS2.
Open the door!
Go report to the quartermaster at the PX. He'll give you your kit for the op.
Yes, sir!
I'm gonna give you the trophy for playing this one, but...
Yeah, but we got the tools and the technology. We should go bomb those fuckers all to hell.
We got the guns. They got the numbers.
So right, to wrap the video up then. So basically, for all the extra settings, personally, I wonder if it's worth messing about with them all, to be fair. You can make certain games look better, but then you'll load a different game up with the same settings and they won't look as good. When I put the final settings on, there's certain games that had really bad graining, like I said, Grand Theft Auto. I noticed it on a couple more as well, that wasn't there on the standard settings. Obviously, messing about with these settings will make some games look a lot better, but we've already upscaled the games. We've already upscaled the resolution. You know, in some cases, some games are running 4K. So, like I said, it's personal preference. If you feel you need to push it more than that, or that's up to you. But me personally, I'd just stick with the auto settings and change the resolution to what your computer's capable of. If it's a similar system to this, you're going to be able to run most games at 1440, some games at 4K. But, you know, if you want to find that sort of niche 1920 by 1080, it's not going to look massively different to the 1440 settings, and you're going to pretty much guaranteed like 95% of the games are going to run perfectly on that. So yeah, basically on this, I'm going to leave all the settings on auto. I'm going to enable the widescreen hacks in the PlayStation 2 emulator, the PSX2 emulator. And I'm going to go with a 1080p resolution on this. I'm going to set that in the advanced system options. And then with certain games like Grand Theft Auto and Gran Turismo, where I could knock them up, and they're sort of the really popular games, I might set the resolution to like 1440p or 4K. But I'm going to do that obviously in the advanced game options instead of the advanced system options. Basically, when you change anything in the advanced systems options, it's obviously going to change it for every single game. If you go into a certain game and you want to knock it up, it's something that you want to relive, you can knock it up and put it onto 4K if your computer's capable of doing it. Obviously, put your frames per second counter on. Have a look if it's not dropping any frames at all, especially in, you know, if there's like explosions and stuff happening and you're not losing any frames per second, then it's ideal to run at 4K. You just set it at that on the individual advanced game options section. So basically that'll do. So if you're still here, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, I'd love it if you could hit that subscribe button below. So I'm going to go off and think about what system to add next to this little 5TB build. Thanks all for watching, and I'll see you next time, peeps.